Alrighty. Happy Friday, Mare.
Happy Friday after the blood moon.
Okay, so I was just thinking I have a new or a new, what do we call that?
Camera? Phone?
LED light, a new ring light for our podcast.
Yes.
And I was thinking about how bright it was, and then you brought up the blood moon, and she was bright. She was bright.
Did you? So I saw the full moon last night because I did my first outside evening walk in a very long time, and it was everything your girl needed and more. Like, oh my God, it was just
What was the
amazing.
temperature?
I think we were like around in the 30s Fahrenheit, so like it feels balmy. Like I don't even know what I'm gonna do in a week because it feels balmy. Like I'm like, wow, like I had no scarf on, like I just had a jacket and my sneaks, like I was living my best life. But the moon was so super bright, and I'm gonna be honest because I'm gonna put it up on the gram. My husband tagged me. That man got up at 2:30 in the morning just so he could go out and take a picture of the blood moon because he was like, of course, he was like, it's an eclipse. It's like the coolest thing.
Was
And
it red?
it was. I'm gonna post it up. And he
Oh,
actually he got it, and it's on his phone. I was actually pretty impressed. The last time he took a picture, he went outside. So this is the man. There was a time when you could see apparently Jupiter, and he again went outside and tried to get a picture of Jupiter. And it's a fuzzy situation, but he got it. But he did get a picture last night of the redness coming over the moon. It was pretty cool. And then this morning when I went to the gym, I mean, oh man, it was huge. Just bright white,
I
just
did
so
see
much
it this
energy.
morning. Yeah, this morning when I walked Bear, I was like, "Oh, that is way different than last night. Like this is cool."
Yeah, I felt it. Okay, this is the woo, but I absolutely felt it. It was just electrifying and clearing, and I don't care what anybody thinks about me. Like, I felt different
No,
today.
you know me. I'm here for the woo. I don't think it's woo, actually. I
No.
just thought of it, but I woke up like 3 times last night at
Oh.
like pretty regular intervals. It was like 12 to 4:30, and it had to have been the moon.
That was during the blood moon. Like, that was during
That's
the
what I
transition.
mean.
Yeah, like absolutely. Because I think that it was at its peak, at least here, it was at its peak, like full on at 3 a.m. But Fred got up, it was like at 2:30, and it was like still kind of going. So yeah, you were
Yeah.
totally in that transition.
Well, so our listeners, that's like one thing you need to know about Mare and I is we are very to the facts girls, like love the data, show us the evidence. And we also are definitely girlies to blame the moon. I don't always bring it up in check-ins, but once in a while I will mention the full moon or the new moon, or just that the stars are a shifting. Because there's definitely patterns and trends that, you know, when you're a coach and you work with a lot of people, it's like, oh, so everybody's having this same thing this week, and it's also, you know, this going on in the solar system. So I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it, but I personally think that science, you know, kind of does play a role. So you might tune out now and not listen to the rest of this episode, but I think you should stick around because this is a topic that, my gosh, comes up all the time. And I get it because I'm also a type A. I am also the girl that has a vivid memory. Mary, let me know if you have a memory like this. I have a vivid memory of being in kindergarten and being 5 years old. And it was the first like spelling test, like of, you know, the year or whatever. And we didn't go by A, B, C, D. We went like E, V, like I forget what it was, like excellent, very good,
Okay.
whatever. And I got a very good, and I didn't
Oh.
get an E, an excellent. And it crushed me. Like I missed one or two, cried, you know, in class, like so, you know, upset, like so upset. And that like just rings in my head that I didn't get an E on the spelling test. And today, I don't even know if I said it, but we're talking about blood work and when you get your lab results back and things are flagged on there or things aren't in maybe as optimal a range as we want to be. And I know for a lot of clients, and I've been there too, you see that and it's like, I didn't get an E on the spelling test. And then it's that spiral. So do you relate to that at all? Am I crazy?
You're not crazy at all. I have a very vivid memory, or brain. That's how I see things. Hence, not to squirrel. Yesterday, when Sarah and I were in a meeting, and when I zero in on something, I start seeing it like in front of me, like, and everyone else just kind of blurs out, and I'm just like in this trance, and I just kind of go because I'm literally seeing things in my head where I was at when I read them. And I'm very much a situational rememberer, and how I felt, how things, textures, like very much so. But yeah, I see this too with lab work a lot specifically. I think there's a lot of buildup, and rightly so, because when someone's doing blood work, they have done that like next level as far as investment in their self. So I want to say they have gone beyond surface level things, and they're like, hey, I really want to dig into that one next layer. But oftentimes it can feel like if anything is off, it can feel like, a catastrophe, and that you failed in all the ways, and we start going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. And I know that anticipation even starts before you even go to the lab. So
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that because, I feel like spring, I'm often like, it's like Q1, like, is often at times where we're doing like some updated lab work, with clients. Mike just got his labs back, asking me every day, are they in? Are they in? Are they in? My husband, for anyone listening. And yeah, so I know it creates a lot of anticipation. And what I always like to remind my clients when they are thinking about it, or it's coming up, or they're anxious about it, or we, do get those results, this is information. This is not a reflection of you as a human being. It potentially is a reflection of behaviors. It is potentially a reflection of lifestyle. It is very much often a reflection of things totally outside of your control and things we may never fully understand, like the blood moon. However, it's not, at the end of the day, it's not like moral, like it's not like a moral issue here.
No.
And you're not a bad kid. You're not going to not go to first grade, because we have some flags on this blood work, which I know it's so hard when you are putting in the work, but I like to just, explain it to people like that this is information, and now it's information that we can do something with, and it's telling a story. And I think, and that's that's how we look at blood work, is we're not looking, as coaches, we're not looking at your alkaline phosphatase is high or your alkaline, like we're not like zooming in on one marker. We are asking questions. And we brought this up in our group mentorship yesterday about iron and ferritin. We were talking about, okay, well, what happens if ferritin is high? What does that tell us? Like, do we zoom in on the ferritin, or are we zooming out to look at that whole picture?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good point. I think that you just made is, I think that's actually a really good thing to, again, point out is a lot of people look at lab work to look at that one thing or the multiple one things. And so they do zoom in, which is very important to at least understand what that marker could be associated with. But I truly feel like where the art and science come together is where you truly zoom out, and you, again, look at the forest before the trees and say how things could correlate. Sarah, speaking of the group mentorship, somebody had asked a question about a CBC panel, and Sarah went into like a really good discussion. And I think it's warranted just kind of put pieces together and how we think. She made the example of an MPV and MCHC, and just looking at B12 and B9 when it comes to that CBC panel. And something she said, and I thought was like just perfect, is she said, it's not that, oh, this person may be deficient in B12 or B9, but hey, why is that? Like, and just ask just general, get curious questions. Like, is it a diet thing? Like, are they vegan, vegetarian, to which maybe we're really trying to bank on them getting a lot of sources from plant stuff, but yet this is a person who's under eating their plant stuff because those are pretty advanced diets. Is it somebody that there's a lot of stress in their life, maybe stomach acid's not quite up to snuff, and we need to shore that up. So I think that taking that broader lens is, I think it can be fun. And it's almost like, I don't know, sometimes I look at blood work as like a bet, like that challenge. I'm like, oh yeah, bet, like I'm gonna make this better, or I'm gonna prove this, or a call to action that fuck, maybe maybe I haven't been on top of the free things that we harp on so much.
Right. And I think that's a very helpful mindset. And it's also a mindset that can get you in trouble because sometimes things really are just out of our control, or sometimes we do things. And I wanted to bring up this example. Sometimes we have goals and we pursue things and we expect the body to change. And perhaps that change isn't optimal, but it actually is optimal because the body is doing what it would expect. And you're like, okay, what the fuck are you talking about, Sarah? So this came up for me with, a client who is on thyroid medication. This comes up all the time and is in a fat loss phase. I would expect her thyroid numbers to come back lower. I would expect her free hormones, her free T3, her free T4 to be lower in this phase because she is dieting. That is a normal response to a fat loss phase. That is why, we have to do things like continue to drop food or add cardio, or we use tools like refeeds and diet breaks and whatnot, is because of those thyroid adaptations, those thyroid, that down regulation that happens. And in turn, metabolic rate, slows with that. I would expect that to happen in a fat loss phase. I would be shocked if somebody, okay, that's not true because there's different, I could definitely give another case where I would maybe see it go up if somebody lost body fat. But anyway, that's another episode. I would expect you, for the most part, to see a downregulation in thyroid in a cut in a very stressful period of life, in somebody maybe who is mid or recently post gut protocol. I would expect those adaptations to happen. So, me explaining to this client, like, this isn't like you're a bad kid and got a bad report card. Like, this is your body's doing what we would expect. This is like, go body, like you're working, like a charm, That said, okay, we want to continue this fat loss phase. What do we need to do given, these results, not just looking at your thyroid, but your results as a whole?
Yeah. I was thinking as you were talking about when I first ran blood work, and I was thinking about where my headspace was when I did like my first set of lab work. And I mean, there's no way I could have changed this because it was my first set of lab work and I was truly looking for what was wrong with me. And going back, I was kind of just thinking about as you were talking that I was like, my first knee jerk was, man, I wish I had been in a different headspace going into that and not seeking what, where my body was doing me wrong and fighting against me. But respectfully, I don't think that I could have gone into my first set of lab work in any other capacity because it was my first time. And that was actually the reason I was running it, was to see what was wrong with me. I wish that maybe somebody had educated me prior to kind of like what you just said of, hey, like, we're going to see how your body is responding right now, and it's going to help provide us information on how to support it better or what it needs, as opposed to you being broken and, how it's fighting against you. I see that quite often. And I think that that's also where a lot of fear comes in, is I think that, and I never want to say curiosity is misplaced, but I think sometimes it is a little bit. I think it's looking for, people will start to do or want to do lab work and want to see what's wrong with their body, as opposed to, again, that curiosity of where they stand or what it shows and the direction that we can go with it. And maybe that's, again, just identifying as more of a little bit of a victim mindset. But I also resonate with that because I remember being in that position where I was like, what is going on? Why is it not responding how it should be? I just wish somebody had explained to me a little bit differently with my results of, hey, it's not that this is wrong or this is bad. It's, hey, we're seeing these adaptations and this is very cool because now we can see maybe where we need to support you a little bit more. I think I would have gained a lot more from that experience.
100%. It's something that I often have to reframe still. It's a lot easier for me now, like going into those lab draws, but it is a lot easier to go into them or come out of them and think like, okay, what does my body need from me? Like, what is my
Yeah,
body asking for?
I love that.
So that's something that I talk about a lot. Like a lot of time, like just like simple example might be yesterday we brought up on the call dehydration patterns and noticing something as simple as that, like that, hey, we have some markers here indicating chronic dehydration, like albumin is high, so is your red blood cells, hematocrit, hemoglobin. Yeah, coach, that 100-ounce water goal, I've been maybe 50 on a good day. And it's like, okay, well, we're also seeing these thyroid adaptations, or, you're telling me you have, low energy. Maybe that is a great wake up call, a great kind of low hanging fruit that you can clearly see. It's not just me bitching at you about drink your water. It's your body is like, girl, give me some water and minerals, too. Hydration is not just water, but, yeah, so I think that's, how we can kind of look at it. Or again, like there's so many different directions we can go with this conversation. But one thing I did also want to mention, and I know you can speak on this, is because of our histories, we're all going to have maybe a different optimal range, and shooting for a number on a blood test isn't the goal necessarily. Like I just had this conversation with somebody about estrogen levels, and actually testosterone too. It's not like we want your testosterone at a 45. It's how do you feel, at these different ranges? Why do we want it there? Is it possible for your body to even be there?
Yeah.
That comes up all the time with hormones.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. I was actually thinking about that right now. I was thinking about it as myself as a coach and how I've evolved, and I feel like I can speak for both of us that we both evolved because when we were both learning and we were both learning, these are conventional ranges as far as like what your lab draw will say. This is the range on your test versus what is considered an optimal range. And fuck, like, I want to be in the optimal range. I want to be optimal, right? I want to be this perfect optimal range across down the board. And I think that this is where our experience, we understand a little bit more so about the individual human being. And I mean, driving someone needlessly into an optimal range, for example, with their thyroid, could make that person feel like they are hyperthyroid and they could actually start having hyperthyroid symptoms. And I think that you said it beautifully, like listening to the person, communicating, I think is the biggest thing, is communicating to the client and letting the client be a part of that discussion. I think for myself as a coach, I know you're the same. I always want my clients to know the possibilities and know kind of where my brain is thinking, and because they come to us, clients come to us and coaches come to us to help teach them, what is optimal and how to get to optimal and how to get my clients to optimal. And I think that we always sometimes have to take a step back and say, okay, well, when we're talking about numbers on paper is one thing, but the human being across from us, we want to make sure that we have those things mesh and mesh well. And I think that that's where it's like that art and that science piece. I'll give a different example with regards to, say, somebody. So for reference, insulin, we do not want high insulin levels. We would like, I would say, most ranges say like under like a 5. Like Sarah and I are a little bit stingier on that one, but we'll say 5 just for the sake of this podcast right now. But if somebody comes to us and they have an insulin of 20 and they have a blood sugar of 120, but they tell us they feel fine, that would be a little bit of a different discussion. And this is again where it's important for us to provide our clients and provide coaches with information. But I never want a client to feel like a failure because maybe they don't feel their best where paper says they're perfect. And I think that that's really important. We want them healthy. We want you healthy. We want you in a healthy range. We don't want any, comorbidities happening. But by God, we don't want to be seeking this perfect. That's not great for you. It makes you feel like shit.
100%. And The other thing with that is blood work is a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
It's literally showing us what happened, Thursday at 7 a.m. in that lab corp and how your body was responding. Like we could go the next day and maybe like you brought up, insulin. Like let's say somebody was like at a 6.2.
Yeah.
And we really want like more like a 5 to a 6. Like do I put them on a liver detox and do this crazy carb cycle approach and maybe not, like probably not. Like I'm probably looking at like, okay, like what else was going on. Maybe I talk about this a lot with my mentees actually, and I'm sure you do too. It's a lot of times it's like with a newer client, and maybe you're 2 months 3 months into working with a newer client, and you get these blood work results back, and you're like, she's working really hard on, we're eating more nutrient dense foods, balanced meals. I've gotten her consistent in the gym, but, looking at her insulin levels, we're at an 8 and, glucose is an 87. So maybe inching a little on the higher end. What do I need to do? Let's consider this. If this is somebody that has no blood work history, which that might be the case, that actually might be trending down.
Yeah.
And you don't know because you have nothing to compare it to. Mm-hmm. So you have to really get curious about, again, like this person, their history, the rest of the panel, what you've been doing, and then make an educated decision based off all of that and have that conversation with the client about, what you're seeing and go from there. Because again, it's a snapshot in time. Like 3 months later, maybe it's even lower, just continuing to do what you do, especially if it is a case where it's like, she's feeling so much better, which like, yeah, like if she made some drastic changes, like she probably is. But maybe, we are seeing improvements, but blood work hasn't quite caught up or we're not quite yet optimal. And that's okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wanted to ask you, do you remember when you ran your first blood work ever?
Like not not being like, a little kid or like.
Yes, no, like actually, like kind of like what I said,
like when I ordered it for myself or, paid out of
coach,
pocket
like
or
you
whatever.
intentionally said, hey, we need to look at blood work.
Yeah. And I remember, I was on birth control at the time.
Okay.
So I had no idea that, I think I did because I'm me and kind of researched it a little bit, but like just not understanding that like, oh, well, yeah, no shit, there's no progesterone there. Like, of course.
Yeah.
I remember that for sure. I remember the first time I like pushed my doctor to order some labs. It wasn't a complete thyroid panel, but it was shortly post show and very, very lean. Got that free T3 back and being like, oh my God, like I am going to need to be on thyroid medication. Like I also remember feeling very validated. Like, this is why I feel like shit. And, since then, like, I'm that was so many years ago, but like, I did get my thyroid up to a great range for me, in my off season, in my improvement season. And I didn't have to go on thyroid medication. That said, did you hear I said for me?
Yeah.
I have a long ass history of birth control use. I have a long ass history of an eating disorder. So when I am looking at my thyroid, for example, I may be okay if my free T4 isn't like this shiny 1.4 and my free T3 isn't a 3.4 plus that you maybe see functional doctors or functional practitioners recommending. Because if I feel damn good at a 1.2 and my free T3 is like around a 3 and the rest of my labs are looking good, I'm freaking thrilled with that.
I would say, yeah. It's so funny you said, I'm glad you mentioned that. I have seen that functional range where it's like that optimal is like a 3.5 to 4, and I'm like, for free T3, and I'm like, I think I've maybe seen one set of labs that's that. And even me personally, I can't imagine. Like, I'm like, no, I think I would feel like not great.
Yeah, me personally, like, and we all like, we talked about this on the call yesterday. Like, this is why it's so important to, shameless plug, take courses like ours or join our group mentorship.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to like read the research and read the literature and think for yourself and think about like the person in front of you. And that's what truly being evidence led means, is we're considering the data, we're considering the person in front of us, we're considering, again, like what our best, the best knowledge or the best research that we have to date. We're considering what we've learned from other practitioners, what other practitioners are seeing as well. But we're not just so-and-so said this, so that's law.
Yeah.
We're not just, this one abstract from this one study on this sick population said this, that's law. No. That's not what being evidence-based means. And that pisses me off. And what pisses me off even more is when people say they're not evidence-led, but they are. They're like, I consider the person in front of me, so I'm not evidence-based. I'm like, no, that is the center of it all,
That's the essence.
Sorry.
No, that was great. That was, I couldn't have said it any better. I fully agree with you 100 zillion percent.
I forget where I started with that, but something about just really kind of seeing that big picture. And again, I hope this episode helps reassure my type A's that optimal requires context, and we always want to consider that context. And it's just like food, right? We don't say that you are a F student if you had chocolate cake.
Right.
Right? We're saying, okay, maybe chocolate cake isn't the most optimal from a gut health and supporting your thyroid or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it has a lot of calories, but it's not a bad food, especially if your mom made it. It's a damn good recipe and she didn't put sprinkles on it because sprinkles are gross. Then it's and you had it at, your birthday, and maybe you're usually not okay with having chocolate cake. Maybe it was an amazing cake then. So that's a whole other episode, but
yeah, I want to say it has to be a German chocolate cake for me, specifically if it's going to be chocolate cake.
Oh my God, Publix. You're coming to Publix. So
of course, that's going to be my first stop.
I don't like it. It's way too rich for me. I'm an ice cream girl. But anyway, Publix has, I can't remember the name of it now, but my grandparents used to always get it. It's a pre-made Publix cake, but Publix Bakery is pretty.
I've never had, full disclosure right now, sorry kids, we're squirreling. I've never had a Publix baked item. Never. I've only.
I'm, not the girl to talk to, but they hook it up. They have a double, I'm not going to look it up now, but they have a double chocolate cake that is the densest thing you have ever seen.
You lost me.
I remember.
No.
Yeah, my grandpa got it for his it was 70th birthday or something one year when I was a little kid. And I remember this thing coming out and picking it up from the refrigerator and my mom being like, everyone get out of the way, because this thing was
dense.
Definitely put a hole through glass. It was dense. But yeah, what do you call it when it's the shell of chocolate?
Is that
you
ganache?
Know what I'm talking about though? Ganache.
Ganache, is that a thing? Okay.
I think that's a thing.
I don't know.
But I had that over the cake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then little ribbon things on it. I don't know. All I know is this thing is this thing could kill somebody.
Literally. No,
literally.
Yeah,
this thing
literally
will crash your windows, clog your arteries, but it is not a bad food and inherently, and you are not a bad person. For having it.
No. I will say one thing and then we'll get off the cake thing, I swear. So I grew up in everything was homemade from scratch household. So
did I.
I've never.
Except for when we were feeding 70 people, then in Publix maybe helped.
Yeah, it was homemade from scratch. I've actually never had any other German chocolate cake except for my mom's recipe. It goes down in history. It is crazy awesome. I'm not a huge chocolate on chocolate, just gluttonous chocolate girl. My husband is, whole nother story. But yeah, German chocolate cake would be my kind of chocolate go-to. But I'm a carrot cake girl. Fresh carrot cake with fresh carrot. I
Yeah,
don't
like
want
scrape
dense,
them. Like
dry,
you scrape the carrots. Yeah, us too. That is big in our
like
family.
legit carrot cake. None of this. I'm not a store-bought girl.
Okay, people like this stuff, so I'm gonna keep talking about it. I know what I wish I knew your mom, but I know like the type of mom that she was and person that she was and what you mean when you say homemade from scratch. Like you don't mean like, okay, well we got the Duncan Hines or Betty Crocker mix
Oh
and
my
added
God.
eggs. You mean like
Fuck no.
flour? No, no, no.
15.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we were usually more of like just from like a time standpoint, like for the most part, like if it was someone's birthday, it was gonna be like a box cake, like add stuff. But not absolutely not if it was carrot cake. And my dad's birthday, that was his favorite was carrot cake, and we would make it, always from scratch. I remember, sorry, Dad. I remember one year like I cut myself and I'm like, I got blood in the carrot cake. But trying to tie it back to blood work here. But yeah, homemade cream cheese frosting, like the whole thing.
Yes, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. That's this.
Sorry
Welcome
guys,
to our
that is
world.
our squirrel. But, I think it's just, I have no segue to that. I was gonna go something about like making a recipe and
No,
whatnot.
no. Just get curious. I
Yeah.
think when it comes down to mindset, remember why you're doing lab work. You're not doing it to seek your failures, seek disease, go into this, corner of loathing of all the things. If anything, you have done lab work, you should pat yourself on the back and say you just leveled up that amount of information that you have to run with. That's like an incredible thing. So don't beat yourself up about the results because you leveled up by even doing them. And now you can make some adjustments to go even further or learn some curious things about like who you are and maybe where your, I'm going to say your optimal lies with regard to the overall optimal. Get
Love
curious.
that. Perfect. So if you guys enjoyed, let us know. Let us know if you have any questions. Leave a review, stars, wherever you're listening to this. And I mean, we have like endless topics that we could go branch off of this topic with. So stay tuned and we hope you're having a good day or night whenever you're listening to this. By the time this comes out, we might still be in eclipse season. I heard eclipse season is long. So we just had the blood moon lunar eclipse, I think in Virgo. I don't know. So anyway, you can kind of get an idea of when we're recording this one. But hope the eclipses are good for you. They always are if we channel it in the right direction, just like the results of our blood work. And I need to end that because our segues are struggling. Have a good day, Mare.
Bye, guys.